always ask guys, former players, how they got into hockey. How did you get in the game?
Yeah, well, you know, it's fascinating. When I was playing, when I grew up, we were still kind of in the ice age where you had rinks everywhere.
Well, you're from Manitoba,
Manitoba.
Right?
Yeah, and I could literally put my skates on, go down my stairs, skate down the street, all the way to the rink. We had a rink right at the corner of our block, and so it was just the passion was just, it was just there for me. I didn't play organized hockey until I was, I think, 9. You know, I was on the ice playing against guys that are 18 years old.
There
Here I was,
yeah,
you know, 70 years old, Howard Chuck jerseys on, skating around, trying to school an 8-year-old, right, and thinking they're cool and all that. Right? So
I know that one.
Yeah, it was just fun. Everyone came there. You know, you didn't wear shin pads, you didn't wear full gear. No one was wearing helmets. And I think that's where the toughness even just started. You know, that you hear how tough the Canadian boys were. Because hey, if you're 8 years old and you take a puck off the shin, are you going to sit there and cry, or do you want to get playing again? So, you know, those are some of the experiences that I had growing up in Brandon.
When I look back on it, it's amazing that I even got a chance to play against you and the other guys in the league, because I started so late. And so my dad's cousin, Jack Valiquette, played for the Leafs, left winger, first round pick. My grandfather was a scout for the Toronto Maple Leafs, played for the Marlies in the original 6 era. My dad and mom met when they were 15, 16 years old, and they moved to Toronto from Barrie, Ontario, so they left young, and my dad didn't follow it, so he wanted me to give it a shot. But I was playing house league hockey as a forward. I couldn't make a travel team. I mean, single A travel team, I couldn't make it as a forward. So we actually moved the summer of 3rd to 4th grade from Brampton, Ontario, which was a bigger community, to Bolton, Ontario, a town of 11,000. When I got to school the first day, everybody had Bolton Bruins jackets. So the bespoke, the Bruin and everything, and corduroy jackets. So all the cool kids had corduroy jackets, right? So I get in there and I'm looking around trying to meet people and just get acclimated. And I realized right there that I needed to make this hockey team to get a Bruins jacket to fit in with these kids, okay? So I went to tryouts that year as a forward. I got cut. So I went and played for Jet Power Credit Union. And then the next year, tried out again as a forward, and I got cut. I went back to play for SO Hockey Club that year, right? Just the jersey. I think they call it the Timbits.
You weren't going to give up.
I was, So then the funny part about my story was my aunt and uncle are watching me, and my parents are going away on vacation. And my dad gives me the line before he leaves. He said, "We're going to stick with this. You're going to play forward. If anybody asks you to play goal, you're not signing that permission slip." I wasn't allowed to play goal. A Valiquette would never play in net. That was my grandfather's line. So I got my aunt to sign the form when my parents were away. I played a game, did well. Played another game and did well before they returned from vacation.
Oh, geez.
I was now a goalie, right? And that next year, I try out for the single A Bolton Bruins again to get the jacket, my 3rd try, okay? And get in there. I get cut as the goalie, okay? So now I'm cut a 3rd year, and now I'm
a lot
goalie.
of rejections in your younger...
this goes on and on and on. This goes on and on and on. So then...
Just talk about it. You need to talk through this.
That's why we're doing this, isn't it? That's why we're doing this. But I do reflect back on why it's so important to be persistent and have that discipline to be able to mentally believe that you can make it. After all of those early disappointments, 8 times in a row when I go to NHL training camp and I go back down to the American Hockey League, it wasn't until my 9th try that I played over at Madison Square Garden, right? So I think that's a big part of what all the youth of our game have to deal with. But don't shy away from tryout season when you get cut, and your son's going to get cut. Let him get cut. Go back and work harder, and it'll pay dividends later.
I always remember one of the first calls, so when the Lethbridge Hurricanes, which was in the WHL, when they called my house to say, "Hey, we'd like to protect Bryce." I remember my dad, he's like, what does that mean? Like, does that cost us anything? We're like,
and so you're 15 years old there before the Bantam draft.
And it was literally, from a matter of a week being, protected, which we had no idea what that meant, we go out to Lethbridge, and we literally show up for a weekend. And they're like, "Hey, well, Bryce made the team." And my dad's like, "Well, what does that mean?" "Well, he's going to stay here and live." And we're like for the whole year, right? I remember my dad was like, "Well,
what's that going to cost me?"
Yeah, well, my dad's like, "Well, we got to ask his mom. Like, we're just getting leaving here." And so it was just kind of.
So how did you get a look like that coming from where you were? You must have been playing like high-level AAA hockey.
Well, so here's the thing, and similar in the sense that like I never made any of the high-level traveling teams. I didn't really get exposed very much, and it just happened to work out that Lethbridge Hurricanes were playing the Brandon Wheat Kings that night, and we happened to have a game when I was Bantam before that, and they actually came to scout my D partner. And then they said, "Who is it, Salvador?" You know, because they thought that the Brandon Wheat Kings would have had me protected.
Oh, wow.
Right, because you're local kid,
they know
right?
you, yep.
And so, but Brandon, as the story goes, never did because they thought I was going to go to college. So I got drafted by Tampa Bay as a 17-year-old. Nothing happened. They basically,
what round did you get drafted?
Sixth round.
Sixth.
And they said, basically, go to school. Right? And I didn't get invited to training camp. Here's an expansion team.
Go to school, like you're going to take at least 4 years and then we'll see you? Okay,
go to school and like up in Canada and just don't even think about the NHL.
Oh, seriously?
Oh, yeah. So I went back into the draft.
Wow.
Yeah, I went back into the draft and and then didn't get picked. And then actually, so my overage year, I played 5 years in the WHL.
Okay.
So drafted by an expansion team, Tampa Bay.
Yep.
No good. And then I decided to play my last year because each year you play in the WHL, as you know, you get a free year of school.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, well, you know what? If it's not going to work out for hockey, I'm going to make sure,
you play your fifth year to have 5 years paid for.
Yeah, and then, halfway into the season, St. Louis Blues, they were scouting me and I signed. So
you signed as an overager during your WHL? Year. That never happens.
Well, just from my track record, how it was going, and then we went to the Memorial Cup that year, lost in the final, so it was a good year. But, had I, took some of those, adversity and say, you know what, oh, well, someone says I'm not good. Right, and just pack it in, like you said. If you don't live through that, people telling you can't be something that you want to be, then it's very tough to achieve it, right?
My agent was Mike Gillis. He was a GM of Vancouver. You're familiar with him. So Mike calls me. I'm 19, turning 20. I'm going to training camp in a few weeks, New York Islanders. And he says, look, come out on the ice. I got a goalie coach that I want to introduce you to. He's going to be the guy that helps you get to the NHL, right? Get out on the ice. There's a East Indian guy on the ice with an earring, right? Yeah. And I think I'm getting played, right?
What year was this?
I want to say that this is 99, okay? 99. Yeah. So I'm basically like, okay, who's in charge of this skate kind of thing, right? And I get on the ice, he says, hi, I'm Sadersha Mirage. Everyone calls me Sudsy, right? And I'm a very open guy. I'm like, all right, like, show me something, because I'm there to learn. Yeah. I get on the ice, get into the butterfly. He asks me to go down in the butterfly, and he says, now push on your knees, from your knees, all the way to the far post. And I try and grab my skate, and I fall halfway and don't make it. And he says, okay, we've got to teach you how to skate, right? Now, I've already played in the OHL, and I think I'm good, right? Yeah. And
there's that moment someone tells you you're not good enough.
So now I'm going to show him, and I go the next day, and he teaches me the first, basic entry-level fundamentals that I've skipped over in my development because I'm a big goalie. And I just get hit by the puck, and I get away with it. I get through the rest of that summer, and it wasn't until my first year pro that I couldn't wait for the season to end. I wanted the season to be over because I wanted to work with Sudsy. I had built up a relationship during the season. He's got a great background in psychology, as well as he was a teacher, so he understands how to work with, and he was a teacher of behavioral students, so he's perfect for goalies, right? So beyond all that, I can't wait for that next summer to begin just because I want to work with him, and I know I have a chance to play in the NHL if I spend the next 5 months on the ice with him. So that summer ends, and sure enough, that next season I play in the NHL. My first games for the New York Islanders. He was the first guy I called as soon as I had won that first game in Atlanta. Before I get on the bus, I'm crying on the side of the street, and I'm like, Sudsy, I couldn't have done it without you.
I was just always that guy that, at least in the first part of my career, I just sat back and just took everything in. Yeah. And that really helped me because when I finally made it to the NHL, when I was sitting beside Al McInnes, all right, and it was like
St. Louis.
Yeah, St. Louis. So I had Al McInnes, Chris Pronger, Keith Tkachuk, Doug Wade.
Come on!
Yeah, I had an unbelievable
all-star team
of just leaders.
So what year would that have been?
I started in 2000.
Okay.
Right, and Turgeon was there, and just and it really helped me become, a future captain. And,
Yeah,
and I always
absolutely.
remember part of it was just understanding, dedication and patience. I always called Mr. McInnes, right? The big joke was for a while there, it was like, they didn't even know I could speak because I was sitting there, I had to throw it here. I was like sitting here, just happy, and they just kept on telling me, Bryce, whenever you get the puck, get Al the puck. So I had the best D-to-D on the blue line in the league.
Nice.
I get the puck and right on his tape. And I joke about that because it was, one, understanding how I could add value and accepting roles. Right. And then passing that on to others and say, so as I, got, further in my career, as younger kids came in, helping them to identify where they can add value and trying to shape them down a path that they could be, productive. Because a lot of times, if you don't have the right mentor, you think, you try to do more than what you should do. And then as I came up through my career in St. Louis with all these guys, all these Hall of Famers, one thing that I really saw from all of them, and I'm sure you saw, it didn't matter how many Stanley Cups, how many Hart or Norris trophies, it didn't matter what record they had. Those guys came and competed every day.
Yeah.
And I saw it in St. Louis. And when I came to New Jersey, I saw it with Brodeur, and I saw it with Elias, just the way these guys came. And so that was just one thing that, not that they necessarily were taking me under their wing, but they were being leaders by example.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I really, took pride in. It was just I wanted to be that leader. Because sometimes, you can't really express or talk about what you need to do. You just need to show it. And that's why, joke about it, I'd be one of the first guys always at the rink. So I'd be there at 4 o'clock, 4:10, before everybody else come there. I'd have all my routine, my equipment. So when people came in, I want to set the atmosphere that their captain's ready.
Yeah. If you play long enough, any sport, I don't care what it is, you're going to get embarrassed. You're going to have to face some adversity. What would you say your moment was where you faced your highest level of adversity?
Coming to the NHL, understanding how to stay in the NHL was the first adversity that I faced. Secondly was then sustaining an injury.
Yes.
Right? And then the pressure of getting back, right? Are you really hurt, not hurt? We played through an era where, if the X-ray doesn't show that bone,
if you're not in a sling,
playing. You're playing,
yeah.
Right? And so for me at that level, you didn't want to be letting down your teammates. And so to learn how to play with broken bones, right, and being knocked out, because that was a different era where, it was a code that you had that I was never going to let a stretcher come on the ice and take me off the ice. I'd get up, didn't matter how hurt I was, and I would get off. And so that's the next piece of adversity people understand is understanding pain tolerance and just what I had to go through, and I'm sure you did too. And then as you keep going on is the adversity of, wow, you're starting to get older.
Yeah.
Right? How do you keep up? How do you, geez, you're getting slow. You're not making those plays. And then
how old were you when you retired?
I was 39, 38, 39.
Right, you pushed it all the way to the limit.
And then if I really had to sum it up with one, I say moment, I would say when I missed the whole year from concussions and vestibular issues that I had. Because that was a year where I was literally in the dark.
How old were you there?
I was 36, right? So 35, 36. And it was one of those things where I had no answers for a long time. We went all over the world, well, all over North America, it seemed, to see all the different doctors. And, and you kind of get into this point where you're like, am I ever going to be better? And so right there was probably the moment where I was really tested for my resolve, if I really wanted it, because it was very difficult to come back from that and do all the rehab that I had to do, like I talked about, spinning in chairs and making yourself sick. But what came out of that was, the next season, we went to the Stanley Cup Finals the year I came back, right? And I had a season, especially in the playoffs. All of a sudden, I was Bobby Moore in the back end of 14 points and however many games. Yeah, it was. All of a sudden, I went from a defensive defenseman to an offensive defenseman. But it was just different pieces of the adversity, right? All through the whole career, injuries, starting the league, and then I would just recap it. Then when playing and being a captain, right? A lot of people talk about, oh, it's great you're a captain, but all the different things that go on as being the captain of making sure everyone else is ready, and
team parties,
and dealing with the media, and when the team's losing, how are you managing that, and then being injured as a captain. So last part of my career, I was injured as the captain.
Oh, that's tough.
So even the adversity.
You feel like your voice isn't as strong.
It was heard, right, when you're in that room. Because as you know, when you're not in the locker room, you're not part of the team.
Boy, it's tough, huh?
You're not part of the team. Doesn't matter who you are. So that's part of, something that's also, motivating factor for guys to get, when you're hurt, to get back in. So for me, that'd say where the adversity is. But for you, goalie, we already started from when you started off, you got cut your whole life. And then you were back in the minors.
Yeah, and then I'll take you to a very severe cut that threatened my career. I had played I played 6 games. So you can imagine when you arrive on the scene and you have no past history. So I end up playing in my second year, I play 6 games for the Islanders. And I have a .949 save percentage. So now all of a sudden I go from a guy that can't play to a diamond in the rough, right? So now I actually have what people think a legitimate chance to play in the league. I'm on 4 teams, and then I'm on 4 more teams. We had a split farm team with Springfield, Providence, Chicago Wolves, Lowell Lock Monsters.
Yeah, Lowell.
All right? So I'm everywhere and anywhere, have pads, will travel, and I'm finally getting called back up to the Islanders, and it's January, all right? And now I'm going to be up for the rest of the season, and this is my first long look 1 year later from after playing. I'm notified from my agent, Mike Gillis, that I'm going up after practice. I'm giddy. You know that feeling, right?
Yep.
I mean, how good does it feel the first day you ever get called up, right? So this is my second call up. I'm just anxious. So I'm maybe a little too giddy, and I'm not paying attention, and I'm in the shower, right? And I never wore flip-flops back then.
Yeah, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah.
But
So I come out of the shower because I hear a fight between 2 of our guys. Craig Mills and Anders Miravold are fighting in the locker room. They had an argument coming off the ice. They were arguing about power play ice time, and I can hear it because our locker room in Springfield, okay, at that time, the Springfield Falcons, it was one in which, and from playing in Worcester where you're going to go, you could put down your bag, and the guy across from you puts down his bag, and his bag is on top of yours. Well, there's no room in that locker room.
There's 20 stalls for 25 guys.
Guaranteed it's against fire code and everything at the time, right? So we have our Gatorade jug just outside the shower, and that's where Jean-Guy Trudel, good minor league player, he's in his skates and he's getting his Gatorade. So I hear the fight. I've got a towel over my head as I'm drying off, and then I just felt it right on my foot, okay? I didn't feel anything except for just that, like a pounding on my foot.
Inside this isn't good.
And I look at it, and I'm like, ah! And I slide back into the shower, and I've got my ankle, and the toes just go off. And there's just the back of the skin holding them on, all 5 of my toes, right? So at that second, I know I'm not getting called up.
You think? Did you just tape it up and say, I'm fine?
My first thought is I'm not getting called up. So, okay, wrap the thing up. Swelling has to get down enough to get surgery on it a week later. I have surgery on it. My first surgery, my toes are sewn up like this. And they tell me I can't play anymore because I can't get my foot in a boot, right? Now, talk about adversity, right? I've got no real formal education except for hockey. And I get myself back to my apartment, I lay down and just start crying. Just couldn't even control myself. Young adult, sees nothing but darkness there, right? And talk about adversity. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get more opinions. And I got on the phone and I drove myself. It was my right foot, so I put it over the armrest and I drove to New York without the team knowing. And I got opinions. And I was able to get a second surgery. And now my toes, although they don't move, but
they fit in the skate.
It affects,
that's all you needed.
Exactly. And I can't kick a soccer ball, and I can't swim so well with it, but it could get at a skate. And it was always with me.
And I can't even tell right now.
Right? Exactly. Wear shoes at the beach. But yeah, you're gonna go, if you're gonna play a long time, as I said, you're gonna get injured, but you're gonna face injuries, and you've got to be able to know how to come back from them. And that was a long road, because I had to start over again. If we're going to talk about how do we mentor up the young guys in the NHL right now, it's challenged in the minor leagues, but that's where it happens.
Yeah.
Long before you played in the NHL and respected Pronger and Waite and the guys, McInnes there, it happened in the minors. That sets the tone before you even get there.
Yeah, sure
and what we learn, and I'm sure you saw this from the star players, I sure as heck did, they have a different relationship with practice. You said it, they prepare for practice,
yeah.
right? Practice isn't just part of the day that just comes and goes, but they prepare for it. And I'll never forget sitting next to Henrik Lundqvist, where I thought I was the hardest worker in the world. And then I meet this guy. And the only secret that there is to a star player from a journeyman player is the star players have worked harder.
Yeah.
They're just more diligent at a younger age. I don't know if I could ever catch up to Henrik Lundqvist because he's already got all those hours in, those valuable hours in. But the laces that he would tie through his skates, at the front of the skates, that exact moment, I knew it was time for me to shut my mouth. Like this is before practice. Forget about games, this is practice. He's going down and he's gonna tie up his skates. He's gonna put his pads through those front eye holes. Yeah. And I am not gonna say another word about last night, the promotion we did, a funny joke, anything. I'm off topic because he was already mentally preparing himself for practice. And that was my biggest takeaway from playing with him was the level of engagement, that professionalism that you're trying now to pass along to the next generation, but there's no way to explain that without sharing it in story like that, because that's exactly how it is.
At the end of my career, like no one was going out anymore, right? It was going out for beers after a game. Like they were like, hey, we're having our water, we're having our, we're recovering our recovery drinks, our proteins, our shakes, we're getting the proper sleep and all that. And I was always very into the being healthy. And so that transition I actually welcomed, but I did miss, going out with the guys. Yeah. Right. And having those dinners and just, now because you just can't afford to. Like you can't afford not to have a good sleep. You know that, right? Yeah. And stuff like that. So it's
So what would you miss most about not playing right now?
You know what? I think that you and I are pretty fortunate that the part that I think I would miss would be around the guys being in the rinks and all that. But we do have that because of what we do. So I don't really miss much from the game because I have that experience. What I don't miss is not being banged around. Standing there between the benches and talking to Dano and Steve and I kind of get the perfect of both worlds.
Yeah. Do you remember in the locker room? I feel like the most common phrase that was always used was, "Hey man, how do you feel?" Right? How do you feel? And it's always based on, the night's sleep that you maybe did or did not have, or yesterday's practice and how hard it was. But you notice how in the day-to-day life, people never really ask you how you feel anymore? That was such a common phrase. It was like, how do you feel? Oh, my legs are dead. How do you feel? And it was always that exchange with the guys. So we have a language that was really all our own and an understanding in the locker room. I certainly miss just the real belting laughs, right? Because that's always going to be tough to recreate because of the fact that we're in battles together. And a 2-1 game, when you win it, whether it's at regulation time or a shootout, it has a certain feeling to it. And you don't get to experience that in everyday life. You just don't. I mean, as a goalie hanging on to a lead, there's no better feeling. And I mean, scoring a goal, you're just, you know what? When I get asked now, I usually say,
pressure.
Right, I usually just say it this way. I'm as happy as ever. But before, it was euphoria, right? So it's a little bit more of a jump on what day-to-day happiness is now. It won't get experienced again, and I'm fine with that. But that is the case when it comes to winning in the NHL.